All right, for more, we are joined by Eric Fusil. He is the Associate Professor at the University of Adelaide. Eric, certainly a very challenging situation. What's the best and the worst case scenario at this moment?
I guess the best scenario would be to have the Titan floating adrift on the surface and being able to localize her thanks to maritime patrol aircraft or ships. Another positive outcome would be to have the rescue robot arriving on time and finding the Titan, maybe entangled around the Titanic wreck, and with the ability to basically free the Titan from the wreck and bring her back to the surface. These would be the two most positive outcomes, but the clock is ticking.
Now, the US Coast Guard called the search for the missing submersible incredibly complex and estimated the sub had 40 hours of air left as of Tuesday afternoon local time. It's now Tuesday evening local time. And what are your thoughts?
So we know that the rescue vessel will arrive on time on site on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Local time. It means that they would be able to launch the robot, and they would have less than 1 day, maybe half a day of oxygen left on board. So hopefully they can find them around. If they are unable to find the Titan nearby the wreck, it's trying to find a needle in a haystack. It's a very wide area. It's pitch black. It's very deep. You do not have any direct ways of communicating with a Titan or finding her. You don't have any GPS, any radar. Nothing with electromagnetic waves does work underwater. You only rely on acoustic sensors. And in terms of being able to see something, you need some spotlights, and you can only see something like maybe within 10 or 20 meters at best. So it's going to be very, very challenging.
I guess one of the biggest worries now is how long people can survive on a limited oxygen supply, and the mental toll of being inside a very small space. I mean, is there anything that people in the vessel can do at this time to conserve oxygen or enable the rescue?
Absolutely. The one thing they can do is remain calm, lay low. Fortunately, they have on board some very experienced people. The French specialist is a former mine clearance diver, so he will know about that discipline to remain calm. And I think that he may find some soothing words to help the passengers to remain calm and let them know that help may be on the way, because there's nothing much they can do. We don't know if they have suffered from a power loss. We don't know if they are, in the dark, or if they still have a bit of light and they cannot communicate with the outside. So this is a kind of discipline and soothing approach that they need to have if they want to last as long as possible.
It certainly sounds like a very traumatic experience for those trapped inside. We understand that the dive took place during a good weather window. How important is that for the dive, and how might worsening conditions complicate rescue efforts?
The difficulty is basically for the launch of the robot and the recovery of the Titan. So if you've got a very strong sea state, that may limit the Titan's ability to go back to her berth, and then that berth to be lifted up onto the mothership. That's the trick. Once you are under sea, you don't feel so much the swell at the surface, but it's really more for the operations of launching and recovering from and towards the mothership, that it's going to be extremely complicated. Even if the Titan were on the surface adrift, they have no way to escape from the Titan, because the hatch is a bolted hatch and you need to open it from the outside. To get that access from outside, you need a sea state which is quite reasonable. Otherwise, it will be a challenge for the rescue party to open the Titan hatch.
Eric, the founder of the company behind the Titan submersible, previously described his industry as obscenely safe. And he complained that passenger vessel regulations held back innovation. I can only imagine regulations becoming stricter from here.
Yeah, it's fair to say that it's a very niche sector. So you have some classification societies such as Bureau Veritas or German National Lloyd or DNVGL that are providing classification rules for these vessels. But you don't have that many submarines that can go that deep, especially with passengers on board. So it's fair to expect that there will be a hardening of the rules from both an engineering perspective, but also a legal perspective, to authorize passengers to dive in those submersibles. Insurers would be very reluctant to insure anyone going on those trips because we realize it's even riskier to go down deep to the ocean bottom compared to going up in space. It's much more challenging.
Eric, while the founder of the company may have described it as obscenely safe, he had come under criticism as well. The New York Times released an article today saying leaders in the submersible craft industry were so concerned of what they called the experimental approach that OceanGate, the company, was practicing, that they wrote a letter back in 2018 warning of a possible catastrophic event with the way that they were carrying out their business. This is only going to sort of add more to the criticism towards the company, isn't it?
Absolutely, but it's fair to say that, in hindsight, everyone got 20 out of 20. It's fair to say that the OceanGate company tried to go for some bold technology with touch screens and hardened controllers. When we do submarine engineering technology, we think about what is convenient, but we also think in terms of backup. What if something goes wrong? What are the backup systems that we can rely on? Do we have some backup systems for the power on Titan? Do we have some backup systems for the maneuvering? What do we have to communicate or send a flare up to the surface? All these things, I guess, will be part of a forensic investigation to assess what should be done or what should have been done to prevent a tragedy from happening. And we have one saying in that business: it's keep it super simple. It's nice to have things that are empowered with software, but what does happen if you got a software crash, a blue screen? You need to have those reliable backup systems to take over and to bring you back to the surface where you can get help from the mothership.
And one last question for you, Eric. Are you optimistic that they will be found and found alive?
I would love to be very optimistic. Unfortunately, maybe to my background, I'm quite pessimistic. I mean, the French diver who was on board said once, if you are at 11-meter deep or 11,000-meter deep, if something goes wrong, your odds of survival are really limited. And I keep my fingers crossed, but the next 24 hours will be critical to see what will be the positive or more tragic outcome.
Yeah, we all certainly wish for the best case scenario here. Eric, appreciate your time and your expertise. Eric Fusil, Associate Professor at the University of Adelaide.